Welcome to the Ed Leaders Edge podcast, where we interview innovators and thought leaders in the field of education who are helping students thrive. I'm your host, Ed Madison. I'm a professor and researcher at the University of Oregon, an educational consultant, and serve as executive director of the Journalistic Learning Initiative, a nonprofit organization that empowers elementary, middle, and high school students to discover their voice, improve academic outcomes, and become self-directed learners through project-based storytelling. Welcome to our program. Welcome back to the podcast. Our guest today is Dr. David Miyashiro. He is superintendent of the Cajon Valley Union School District and a pioneering force in educational innovation. As the co-chair of the K-12 Computer Science for the California State Board of Education, he established the first computer science magnet school in the U.S. and transformed his district into a national model of excellence and innovation. Named Superintendent of the Year and recognized by both the White House and the U.S. Department of Education, Dr. Miyashiro brings 25 years of experience in modernizing and learning approaches and creating dynamic digital ecosystems that prepare students for success in our rapidly evolving world. Welcome to the podcast. How are you?
Doing great. Good to see you again, Ed.
You too. And I was so moved, and I've had several conversations with people after our original conversation about the work that you're doing in California, specifically in honoring young people, students' interests at the level of kindergarten and helping them to really identify what their interests are and how that might lead to some professional aspiration much later in life. Tell me about that work.
Well, for the first part of my career, I chased test scores with No Child Left Behind and the accountability movement, and we watched our young people do well on standardized tests, but still not have life outcomes that we were hoping for, still going into generational gangs, getting pregnant in high school, dropping out, even though they were proficient and advanced on the tests. Over time, talking with families and community, what we've come to is our district vision. And what families and community want are happy kids engaged in healthy relationships on a path to gainful employment. And that last piece on a path to gainful employment is really difficult because one of the biggest emphasis we have at both the federal level and state level is work-based learning, career development, and gainful employment for youth. So we had to create our own curriculum called The World of Work, which starts in kindergarten. What we learned from research in the UK is that kids start to foreclose on careers and gender stereotypes as early as 6. So if we are not intentional about giving kids career experiences starting in kindergarten to reflect upon and think about and build a vocational identity, then middle school is too late and then high school will be wasted. So we're very intentional. Every grade, every year starting in kindergarten, our kids have deep career exploration. Their career counselors are their teachers who have good relationships with them. And what we're seeing is with the advent of our new high school that we chartered in 2020, is our kids are not only graduating with college and university credit, but a clear roadmap and compass of where they want to go in terms of career.
Mm-hmm. Now, there's an argument, and I hear it, on a university campus that, we're a liberal arts program, that we're not about vocations, and that we should be teaching kids to think, and what they end up doing with that skill is for them to figure out maybe on their own. I don't know, but tell me, how do you? I'm sure you've heard all kinds of maybe some skepticism or pushback on starting kindergartners or thinking about what they want to be when they grow up.
Well, there are a couple data points I'd like to point out. And the 1.8 trillion in outstanding student loan debt, that's a symptom of the dysfunction of our complete system. So these are the kids that were successful. They went through high school, they graduated, they applied for a FAFSA, perhaps got accepted to university, went to college, and are now holding the bag on student loans that they can't pay off because either they didn't finish, or the degree that they attained didn't lead them to a career that would help them pay off the loan that got them into college in the first place. That's one. The other is the workforce itself. And what workforce is telling us is that there's not enough talent, that there's a skills gap. And I think that the misalignment between K-12 university and workforce is something that has been figured out in states like Indiana and Colorado, where they're working together to build an ecosystem. We're hoping that California can become a third or fourth state to adopt something that's systemic and that truly helps kids get into happiness, relationships, and gainful employment as an outcome.
Hmm. So say a little bit more about what this actually looks like. I mean, for those who are watching and not just listening, there's a young kid over your shoulder doing a TED talk. So
Yeah.
explain for our audience, like kind of what this looks like in the classroom and in the school.
Yeah, well, it started with a field trip. So in San Diego, we have an organization called Junior Achievement, and Junior Achievement has a building called BizTown that's like a mini city. And then fifth grade curriculum prepares kids to understand the jobs there. They create a resume, they prepare for an interview, and then they get to pretend to be a professional at BizTown for one day of the year. And kids would tell us, this was the best day of my life. It's better than Disneyland. Kids in eighth grade got to go to Qualcomm, which is a big tech company here in San Diego, where they experienced the world of work in eighth grade, another one-day experience where kids got to explore their strengths, interests, and values and see where they can apply them at Qualcomm, not just as an engineer, but in personnel, in design, in welfare, in all the different aspects of jobs at Qualcomm across the interest spectrum. And what we saw in those two one-day experiences, that kids lit up and they saw a hope for their future. So what we did was reverse engineered that to happen starting in kindergarten, where kids in project-based learning deeply explore the careers of civil engineer, of park naturalist, of theme park designer, all these different careers that are here in San Diego that in a project they're able to actually simulate doing it and then reflect and talk to professionals who do it. And again, every grade every year, 6 careers per year. By the time they finish middle school, a total of 54 experiences.
Oh, wow.
If they don't have those hands-on doing experiences, they can't say they like or don't like something. It's like asking a kid, do you like Indian food? Do you like Thai food? Do you like Mexican food? If they've never tried it, sure, they can talk about it, but until they taste it, they can't really have an authentic reflection, which is why we created hands-on curriculum in the classroom to be done with our students and teachers.
And I believe you've been doing this for more than a decade. So what are you finding in terms of the long-term longitudinal results?
Yeah, and in our TED Talks, by the time our kids finish high school, they're able to clearly articulate who they are. They have a strong sense of self-awareness, strong sense of self-efficacy belief. They can articulate what their strengths, interests, and values are, and they can also tell you what the path is for them to attain their career goals. And that's starting sophomore, junior year. So by the time that our kids get into their apprenticeships or their internships, it's not just trying to figure out, do I like this or not? I've spent the last 10 years figuring this out, and this is exactly what I want to be doing. And so intentionality is what we're seeing. We're also hearing from our parents, thank you so much. We wish we had this when we were kids. Gosh, if I had this when I was a kid, I might have XYZ. And so the conversations we're hearing both from our students, our parents, and especially local businesses who are saying, thank you for not stigmatizing labor. Thank you for not stigmatizing the Department of Defense. Thank you for showing that there's a path in public service for our students in police and fire and public works, and perhaps serving in the US military. All these options that, for the last, I think, 100 years, we've stigmatized in public education because it doesn't necessarily require a 4-year degree right out of high school.
Let's step away from our conversation for a moment for me to tell you about the Journalistic Learning Initiative's innovative educational tools and services. Of special note is JLI's Comfort Corner initiative, a video library featuring near-peer role models sharing about their mental health journeys. This innovative resource destigmatizes mental health challenges, provides a gateway to seeking professional help, and supports your students in realizing they're not alone. If you're looking to make the best decision for your teaching staff and students about AI adoption, improving student engagement, strengthening writing skills, promoting social media mindfulness, or enhancing college and career readiness, please take a moment to visit our website at journalisticlearning.org. Our team of University of Oregon researchers offer customized AI tools, instructional materials, professional development, and consulting. Research confirms that students with journalistic learning experience outperform their peers on numerous key indicators for college and career readiness. At the heart of our work is empowering learners to become effective communicators. If you think about it, effective communication is critical in every human interaction, whether it's writing an essay for a grade or being interviewed to secure employment. Since 2015, JLI has benefited nearly 20,000 students and served schools in 15 states and the District of Columbia. I invite you to schedule an appointment to explore how JLI can improve your students' learning outcomes. Now back to our program. Let's talk about technology because, for all those people that are concerned about manufacturing jobs and people taking their jobs and everything else, the reality is in many cases robots are taking their
Yeah.
jobs. But I know that you have a philosophy of, as it relates to tech, that's like more human, less tech. So tell me how that plays out and how potentially in your district you're approaching AI and looking at other issues related to technology.
Yeah, 12 years ago, when we introduced the idea of going from a text-based to a digital one-to-one environment where every kid would have a device for their learning and ubiquitous access to Wi-Fi, there were skeptics and there was pushback. And we doubled down on the phrase you just mentioned. If we do it right, the technology will be less tech, more human, much like in the medical field. And so what I shared with parents and some of our teachers is that when you go to the doctor now or the dentist now, there are machines doing a lot of the imaging and the analysis and the data collection. The doctors and nurses are still there. They still play a pivotal role, but the blocking and tackling of the work they do is done much more efficiently and much more precise. In a classroom, what that looks like is assessments, assignments, grading, programming, charting out, an instructional sequence. A lot of those things can be done now by algorithms and machines. It doesn't take away the need for a paraprofessional or for the teacher, but allows them to spend more time one-on-one in small groups, in relationships, really as a coach and a guide on the side, more human, less tech, because the tech is in the background doing what tech does best, and the teachers and paraprofessionals are doing what they do best, which is nurture and care about our students and cultivate their self-efficacy belief and motivate them in the classroom.
Mm-hmm. So does that translate into basically putting some boundaries around use of technology, or to what degree students are able to bring their personal devices into class and those types of things? We're reading about districts where they're doing a complete turn your phone in when you come in at the beginning of the day. And I've also been hearing that students have kind of figured that out. They have a new phone that it's actually activated and their old phone, and they turn in the old phone
Oh no.
and keep the new phone.
Maybe I just haven't seen it yet, and they're that savvy that I haven't found it in our district. But that sounds scary. I don't know. I think, though, that to your point, that data privacy, data security, and data interoperability those are the table stakes. If you don't have that, then districts don't have any business providing devices for their kids, because data security and privacy is critically important. The other thing is, with tools like artificial intelligence, is guardrails are important as well, to make sure that the data and the information that kids are using and accessing for productivity are accurate, that they're the truth. And so teaching kids at an early age how to discern that with their teachers as partners, not trying to hide it from them, even though it's helping them in their schoolwork, is important. And what's most important, at the Regional Economic Development Corporation here in San Diego last month, we heard from a panel of CHROs from some of the biggest tech companies. And what they're saying is that 10 years ago, majority of the jobs in tech were software engineer. Now, the current job demand in tech, 7 out of 10 jobs are not software engineering jobs. There's prompt engineering, there's marketing, there's design, there's leading teams. A lot of the essential skills that kids need, that we talk about as soft skills, are critically important. And utilizing technology differently, because tech now can write its own code. So we don't need software creators per se, but we need people who understand the creation process to be able to manage teams and make sure that companies are providing the right solution for their customers and keeping up with the demand of new innovations.
Mm-hmm. I would imagine that this approach, in terms of introducing students to vocations earlier in the process, is having them actually discover like just their own innate maybe passion. Maybe they're extroverts or introverts, or they have certain traits that would have them, be more adept in certain areas than others. Are you finding that's part of my question? And my other question has to do with, we're hearing so much about just, teen mental health issues nationwide, internationally, actually. And I'm wondering whether or not when a kid has a better sense of sort of purpose, does that translate into just holistically a healthier sense of well-being?
100%. And so Ken Robinson, the late Ken Robinson, who we all greatly missed, would say that schools are a place where kids unlock and find their creativity, find their passion and their interest. And for so long, we've had one singular notion of success in schools. Standardized tests. I can read information, I could produce it back and answer a multiple choice question. No workplace has workers have no access to information where they have to, from memory, do things in a test-like format. Everything is collaborative, there's communication. And so the current and future state of education should take that for granted, to say that students are going to come with these skills and opportunities. What then? And when students then are validated for their ability to be artistic or investigative using math and science, or realistic, I can use my hands to build and construct things, or to make things like music or instruments, or I'm social, I'm good at helping people, public service, nurses, doctors, teachers, counselors, that every job is validated. All work has value. And when you can say that every child, even though they have unique strengths and interests, has value here now, but also will have value in the workplace. And here's how, here's where.
Mm-hmm.
Whether you're a hairstylist or a Marine or a civil engineer, there's something for everybody. And our job is to find students with gainful employment, not just employment. So often we hear that people chase title, pay, and promotion, and those motivators end up being depressing in the workforce and finding people wanting to quit. If the motivation for work is my strengths, interest, and my workplace values, what I want to contribute to the world, how I want to make money, then it's a whole different game.
Mm-hmm. How do we shift the tide of approach? I mean, certainly project-based learning has gotten more currency, but in the wake of No Child Left Behind and even Reach to the Top, there's still an emphasis on just testing and high stakes testing.
Mm-hmm.
Is there if we could wave a wand, it's not an easy answer, but I mean, obviously demonstrating what you're demonstrating is one way, but
I'll tell you, the work that I've been engaged with has given me connections with people all across the country that are pulling on the same levers, trying to do the same work in their communities. I'm really inspired by the state of Indiana. Secretary of Education Katie Jenner has been there for some time, worked closely with the governor to build a statewide model of modern youth apprenticeships. So in Indiana, their vision for the Hoosiers are that starting freshman year, kids, much like they do in Switzerland, are in paid youth apprenticeships where they are earning high school credit, university credit, and money at the same time, all through their high school experience. And that's incredible. What we're trying to do in California and in San Diego is build an ecosystem here where kids can also, starting freshman year, enroll in dual enrollment, so they're getting university credit, but also through their apprenticeships and their internships, get work-based credit as well for building the essential skills of communication, collaboration, critical thinking. And by doing so, then when kids start to apply for college, they already have university credit, they already have work experience, and they built financial literacy, not in a class, but by making, managing, and investing their own money during high school as part of their paid apprenticeship.
Wow.
It's a model that works, it works for workforce, and it certainly works for young people, especially young people that would have to, either decide, am I going to do an internship or work part-time to support my family at home? This model says you can do both. And it shouldn't be a choice for a young person, especially a young person trying to support a low-income family.
Mm-hmm. David, when we first talked, I said, I got so inspired by the work you're doing. I said, I got to raise some funds and come down and do a documentary about it, because I think that I think in terms of our own journalistic learning initiative, work, the videos of kids, is probably the most powerful demonstration for people understanding, like, the literal magic that you're doing. I mean, it's just so inspiring. So I meant it when I said it. I still want to pursue that. One last question has to do with just the general perception of public education, which I sometimes compare to the general perception of journalism. We both have kind of a PR problem. People, don't, in the general public space, don't necessarily understand, just the merits and the value. No one becomes a teacher or a journalist to become wealthy. It's definitely a sense of public service. And I'm just wondering, what do we do to change the narrative so people fully understand that, this is about public service, but it's also about, just benefiting the next generation. It's a big question.
Well, I do welcome you, and I hope you do come out and shoot the documentary here. And I think we can tell that story. And I think there are a lack of stories out there, Ed, that show what's right. There's so much out there in the media about what's wrong and the critics. And I think that the far left and the far right in politics have not done us favors by fighting, on opposite sides of issues that should be, unified. I do think that education, because we have young people for 13 years, is the solution. One of my favorite quotes is from Abe Lincoln, and he said, "Teach the children so you don't have to teach the adults." I think what he meant there is that if we get it right in education and show kids their civic responsibility and also what gainful employment could be for them, then by the time they're adults, they can be happy and healthy relationships, gainfully employed, contributing to a society where, whether you're from the left or the right or in the middle, we all have some common values and common goals as Americans. So I'm hopeful that education, K-12, can be that unifying entity that will unify our country that's very divided right now.
That's a great way to close. Dr. David Miyashiro, Superintendent of the Cajon Valley Union School District. Thank you so much for joining us, and let people know how they can find you and the school district on the internet, either through LinkedIn or website.
Yeah, CajonValley.net is our website. I'm available on Twitter at David Miyashiro, and then anywhere on social media. Please reach out. Would love to connect.
The Ed Leader's Edge podcast is produced by the Journalistic Learning Initiative. Please check out our latest books, Language Arts in Action from W.W. Norton Publishing, and Raising Empowered Learners from Rauman and Littlefield. For more information about our work, please visit journalisticlearning.org or edleaderedge.org. Thanks for listening.